Welcome, everyone. It is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. Who knew? Who knew? Welcome, everyone. And special welcome to Annette. I think this is your first time, right?
That's right.
Okay. So, oh, look, here's Lynn. So if you can raise your hand like this, or if you can raise it electronically, that's easier for me to see. On the electronic, I think it's under, it's under reactions, and you can just go like this, and you see my hand is up.
Or
Then I lower it. Okay. So, hi, Lynn. Wait, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
I don't know, since they loaded new technology on my phone and on my iPad, I'm having the worst time getting things.
All right. Well, you're here with us now. You should
All
come to
right.
class.
Okay.
Go. Veronica Schanoes Burning Girls and Other Stories. This is Serpents. Frankly, I'm afraid to ask for first reactions. First reactions are another prize, but go ahead. First reaction.
You told me before I read it, so I was everything.
I'm too confused.
My
Andy.
first reaction was
Loud. All right, ladies.
that this author wanted to use every creative thing she could think of and how deep and how whatever popped into her head. So I guess I'm not smart, but I didn't.
No.
All right, Judy, Elaine, and Lynn.
I think she took a bunch of fairy tales, like Little Red Riding Hood.
Ladies, Izzy and Mary, we have to be quiet, sorry. Go ahead.
A bunch of fairy tales, and she threw them up in the air, added some adjectives, and wrote the short story.
Yeah.
And I think if we did that, we could do a better job of it. Yay, 100% agree.
There may be some truth to that. Elaine.
I didn't get what she was going for. I have no idea at all.
Hi, Bev.
I ended up
Beverly.
finishing the story and it was like, what? So I'm waiting for someone.
I actually got some stuff from the internet, but Lynn and then Mary.
Okay. Bye-bye. I think I figured out something that would.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yay.
Because I have no idea.
So I have to say that I start out looking for something I could grab onto that might lead me to some kind of interpretation, and it was pins and needles.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I thought, okay, that's an emotional feeling when you feel like you're on pins and needles. And so what is this woman or young girl trying to communicate to us? And the problem with this story is if you can't suspend disbelief, you can't find meaning. So the meaning comes in her magical realism.
Yes.
She's trying to explain what it feels like to be a teenager or someone going from teen to adulthood. And how do I explain it to someone how I'm feeling? And so she creates a story where her mind is in chaos, which is, if you've ever been with teens or taught teens, you know that they are between a rock and a hard place between who they are and what they're doing. So the snake imagery, I looked up snakes and serpents, and she says I had to read this a couple times to even find anything. The snake is good and evil. And this is her theme throughout all these stories, is that mankind is either good or he's both good and evil. And she has to make a decision about what she wants to be in life and do in life. And there are points of reality which you can grab onto, like her subway ticket or a book, or there's something here. I say, okay, she's in reality now. Otherwise, her mind is going hither and yon, and she doesn't know what she's doing or where she's going. And yes, Judy, there are tons of, there's an Alice in Wonderland here. There's Hansel and Gretel here.
Little Red Riding Hood.
Okay, so that's her childhood, I mean, teens don't know whether to be children or adults. They're
she's an
having a
adult.
tough time. And at the end of the story, it's beautiful. That image is beautiful because snakes take off their skin in order to grow. So,
If only our
Um,
teens could do that.
and teens are searching for that. So that's what I got from the story. Otherwise,
That is really good because
after
Excellent, Lynn.
after the
No
first
idea.
after the first reading, I said, and I say that to Gary every day, every time. I don't know what this story is about. I have
All right,
to reread this.
Yeah, you gotta reread it. Mary
Yeah.
and then Ellen.
Okay, this is my take. She's a teenager. She's a drug addict. She has speed in her bag. She never gives the speed away. She keeps it. She sheds her clothes at the end, but she gave away food. She unlocks like Alice in Wonderland. She unlocks the door, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, her grandmother won't look at her. Well, that's the adults who don't want to, they don't like seeing, she doesn't like probably seeing her granddaughter failing. She's looking at she's saying the snakes, at the end, because it's kind of weird at the end, but I think that's really it. It's an adult reaction to her past and not who she is. And she's saying, look at me, I've shed. But she hasn't shed because she keeps the speed. She never got rid of the speed.
Interesting.
Very huge point.
Very, very
Secondly,
interesting.
when you're on drugs, particularly something like speed, you're going to feel pins and needles.
True.
In fact, there's a syndrome they talk about. There's a psychological syndrome where people, right before migraines, people feel pins and needles in their bodies. It's drug. This is obviously probably drug induced, and the turmoil of life. If you're on drugs, you are in kind of and there's a reason she's doing it. She's depressed and she's wearing depressive clothing, and she has the makeup and everything that the kids that are depressed have. So this was her journey. And again, she leaves it just like she always does at the end. Well, she's better, but
Yeah.
the drugs are still, it's the one thing she doesn't give away out of her basket or her coat. It's actually in her coat. She keeps it in her coat. That's the one thing she doesn't give away. So, I mean, that's sort of what, I got out of it.
Very interesting. Ellen.
Well, I offer this maybe as a way to read the rest of the book. I got to the end. I only read it once. I agree with all the stuff that you go through first. I get to the end of the story, and the first thing I did was put 3 question marks in it. And then I thought about it, and I thought, okay, well, maybe her point is you can shed your skin. The grandmother she was trying to help the grandmother, I think. The grandmother was all upset and, sitting there, it's dead. But she showed her that she could shed her skin and still be alive. And so, as Lynn, I think, referred to, there was
She's trying to
part of the
cover-
story. There's always a good thing at the end. It's an awful lot to read before you get there with all that stuff. But I do think that she always has some moral or whatever.
So I found 2 things online of people blogging about it, Serpents. And this person writes about every story. Now, we already had Alice of Fantasia, but I thought there was definite Alice references. Serpents is another tale, very much reads like a classic fairy tale. One girl follows a rabbit down a modern rabbit hole, the subway station. Here, the story takes several interesting twists and turns. Will you take the path of pins or the path of needles? Serpents was simultaneously an interesting and confusing short story. I feel like much of the confusion was intentional. So I didn't actually mind that all that much. In fact, I enjoyed the overall feel of the story, which I thought was okay. Now, this person said, this Serpents, this was quite frankly very weird because I'm terrified of snakes, and the story was full of very vivid descriptions of snakes as well as other creatures. If you have I don't think it would be a comfortable story if you were afraid of snakes. But the other thing, and nobody's mentioned it, I also thought was a little bit Red Riding Hood.
Oh, after the basket.
I didn't think about Hansel and Gretel.
There are 5 stories that I could pick out that were children's stories.
Excellent. All right, Merle.
I thought there are a lot of references to symbols that were negative about women, things that are negative in
Oh.
lives, starting with the pins and needles. And that whole reference to pins and needles is something that goes way back like to 1600, 1700, that it meant women were for her, waiting with anxiety for something to happen. When we sit on pins and needles, we're saying we're waiting for.
Yes.
So I think that represented a lot about what women go through, waiting, whether it's waiting for your child to be born or waiting for your children to grow up. There's a lot of waiting with anxiety. And the other thing was about the serpent. And the serpent can represent something from the Garden of Eden. It can represent
Absolutely.
wisdom, represent the part at the end, like Little Red Riding Hood. She goes to see Grandma, and Grandma won't look at her, but she's shedding her skin. She's growing. She's going to improve. There are all these little symbolic things that happen to women. And down the rabbit hole, you go down the rabbit hole for curiosity, but also danger. Women go through a lot of danger. If you really think about what you go through in your life, just childbirth. So this girl, by the end, though, it has kind of a happy ending. Grandma, look at me. I'm alive. I'm going to get better. It's going to get better. So it had kind of an optimistic ending.
Good.
Alice, then Lynn.
Yeah.
Alice.
I don't have anything definitive to say about this, but I thought that the imagery of the snake on the first page of the story, she kind of lays out the fact that the past would be the future and the future would be like the Mobius strip, that keeps
Right.
going. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to hear what people have to say about
Interesting.
that. And is that having to do with her being in this drug induced state, that she doesn't know what's
I
up?
mean, once you shed your skin, you get another one when you're a snake
Mhm.
or when you're a teenager. Lynn, then Mary.
There are a couple things that I focused on. One is the idea of a test. That was brought up in the story. Is this a test of my getting through this? There is the idea of a path. There are two paths. Which path is she going to take? So she is contemplating. There's so much going on in her head, and teenage years are really a conglomeration of so much whirling. And I think this Mobius strip might be part of that image of life is okay. So she says on page, let me get my glasses on 140, where are we? 144 at the bottom. She's almost regained her balance. Okay. When she skids on some pins and falls heavily on the side, blending her hands, her knees, and her face. The sun is setting. I think I don't know if you all saw that. I thought she was almost so suicidal here in some of these.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Some of these images.
Yes. Yeah.
But then there on the next page, no pins in her eyes. Thank you very much. No needles either. She sets off to find
Yes.
whatever it was that made her lose her balance. This idea of she almost regained her balance. She skids. She sets off to find whatever it was that made her lose her balance. This is another search. These stories have been journeys, and we're caught in them, trying to help her find her balance. She steps off the path. Another idea I had too is that this girl, and this is a teenage phenomenon, is wanting to reject conformity. She feels constrained by society, and she's letting her imagination go, and she wants to feel freedom, and she doesn't know how to get it. And that's another idea. It's adolescence is the choice of what path to take in your life. where are you going? What do you want to do? What is out there for you? And she is really in a state. I mean, she's in her pins and needles state and can't shake that, but she's searching. I mean, at least she's searching. And if you've ever been with teens a lot, some of them give up the search, and they take that speed out and stay there.
Right. As do adults. Let's
As
not.
do
yes.
adults.
Some people, yes.
Yes.
Nature.
Mary, then Abby. Mary.
Okay, I agree it's suicidal, particularly when she's in the subway station and she talks about the third rail and the rabbit turning into the mouse and he's a vermin. So she looks at, if she touches the third rail, she would die, which is true. It's electric. I mean, the subways, you know what the third rail when they refer to.
Yeah.
And number two, though, then she might be turning to vermin herself. I mean, so it's kind of a negative. She's beginning to look at this stuff kind of negatively. But in the end, I still think that she does this every time. She never has resolution. She still's in her dark Martens. She sheds not her whole skin.
Charlotte, you're talking not the author.
No. But I'm saying the author in all her stories. The author doesn't. It's not a clear. It's not like, okay, she's come out. She's standing there. She shed her stuff because she wants her grandmother to look at her. But how many times did you deal with teenagers? I mean, Lynn knows this. You think they're better and they're going through a stage and you're getting better in your classroom and you see them in the hall and they seem to be smiling a little bit more or they're whatever. And then they do a back step. I mean, the point is she is prepared to go backwards. She's not
Listen, that happens with adults.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, it's not to everybody.
Rob Weiner's son.
Yes.
Abby, then Ellen. Abby.
Full disclosure, I did not finish it. I read at night and I was really concerned about having nightmares about all these creatures. And finally I allowed myself to stop reading.
But you were probably correct.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I don't think it's just teenagers. I think all through life we're on pins and needles.
Yeah.
I, who have seen a lot of ortho people and neurologists and so forth, and the first question is, do you have that sensation of pins and needles because of all the neurological issues?
Oh,
The other thing that I was thinking of is when one of my kids was a baby and I was trying to find something to do with myself when I home for the first time, and I was trying to learn to sew. And with sewing, you have pins and needles and whatever you're trying to do.
Yes.
And I found that it actually gave me a lot of neurological problems because I was sitting like that all the time. So I think that there's so much to say, but when you think of all the stages, whether it's waiting for that baby to take that first step or that first word, or waiting for a medical report, or all through life, I think we find that. But I did not love the story, obviously, but listening to this discussion, there's just so many ways that we can interpret it.
Right.
And
Read the last page. Read the last page.
Yeah, the last page.
The last page is
Much more positive.
much more positive. I have Ellen, then Judy. Ellen.
I think all I was going to say is that when you look at it from the 6 or 7 stories that we've read, there's always something. There's always a conflict, and it's not totally resolved, but nor are most conflicts in our lives.
Right.
But there's always something that she gives you that's positive. And so in that sense, I think if we stop disliking the book because it's a weird story and just try to find the positive in it, maybe we'll be better off.
There we go. Judy.
I don't think this was written as well as her other stories. I think that's why it was harder for us to read. I don't think it flowed in the same way her other stories have flowed, so that it was easier to follow a train of thought. So I think her writing got in her way.
I think.
Okay. Interesting. Lynn, Andy, Izzy.
I would be interested to know the progression of these stories. Is she in the midst of her worst nightmare now? I mean, we talked about this last time. I mean, this woman, as I said to Judy, wrote me, and I said she needs to go back into therapy if she isn't in therapy.
Listen, you say stuff like that, I can't bring her here.
All right, wait a minute.
Therapy.
we
think you should.
I think this woman has a tremendous amount of gut I mean, to put herself, I mean, I think this is so autobiographical. I can't,
I do too.
no,
Yes.
no sane person would be writing like this.
All right, Lynn,
No,
you can't,
and-
if we bring her, you can't say
And
that.
she had to use magical realism because she couldn't explain in
Yeah.
ordinary words, Judy, so we could understand what she's feeling. She has to use this symbolism. This is almost allegorical, I thought, as she
Yeah.
goes into, if you look at the bottom of that, what page are we on? 147. She loves subways. She loves the subway system. If you look at
Yeah.
Charlotte has always loved the subway system, the dark, dank, smelly stations. The more labyrinthine, the more exits and interchanges, the better. She likes the seemingly random assignments of letters and numbers. She likes the confusion. And then there's words like shifting and free fall. This young person wants to abandon, as I said before, all constraints of her life. Whether if suicide will do it, okay. She's not going to
Or
be
drugs.
or drugs.
He's in a free.
Yeah, she's in free fall.
Yeah.
And I think actually this is very creative. I mean, if you understand, and a lot of people do not like this kind of writing. It is so difficult to deal with because you have to go into the symbolic level on all fronts here to understand what she's trying to say. But
Here. I have Andy, Izzy, Alice. Andy.
Well, I haven't exactly changed my mind, even though, we can explore these themes. I agree with Judy. I think too much of a good thing is not wonderful. And that she tried so hard to get in all these different fairy tales and whatever she could think of that I feel like she needs an adult in the room. And, that it's all the external things too. It's, how it looks, the Doc Martens, the color of her hair, what she kept. She seemed to diminish her own story, that it was just so much. Come on.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah. Izzy.
Well, I came here this morning really thinking that this was the craziest story I've read in my whole life. It just, I got the themes of the fairy tales, and the pins and needles absolutely did not get. I mean, I just literally thought of pins and needles.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that I came and heard your explanations, because what you're all saying makes sense. However, the fact that she could write all this, the writing of it was just unbelievable. Unless you've experienced something like that, would even the fantasia of it, the sheer writing. It was dark. It was ugly. It was painful, and I just thought she's going through a bad time, and then she's felt this before. I felt that she's had. You can't write something like this unless you felt it before, unless you felt those feelings. So that's what I was thinking. That was autobiographical. That she was. The emotions, the darkness,
I hear you. Alice, then Merle. Alice. Wait. There. I've done mute you. And you're unmuted.
Thank you for muting me because I know there's,
Right.
as I said, I have work people here.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I was going to say, this is adding to what Izzy said, what Lynn said. I feel that, and I think some therapists will have you do this, is writing, journaling is a good way of getting all your thoughts down. So I don't think it's that. Yes, I think it probably is autobiographical. And this was her way. Everybody has different ways of dealing with things. You talk to your family, you talk to your friends, you talk to a therapist. But, all of us obviously are big readers. I mean, you read things, so many things that you read are, in their own way autobiographical.
true.
And and getting your thoughts and your feelings out and trying to grapple with them. I know when I put something on paper, oh, you can look at it again and rethink it. So yeah, I think that I agree with what you said, Lynn, and what Izzy said. And yeah, I did not really understand this story, but now listening to what everybody has to say, it's this kind of tortured person trying to figure out what's happening in her head.
Yeah.
In her head. Yeah.
Yeah, Merle.
Well, usually riding on a train is a very neutral experience. You see people around, usually reading or having a snack. But these people that she sees aren't people, they're birds.
I know.
Alice the one who, that's the whole
They're
message.
threatening to her. These are not friendly birds. And I think that that's symbolic of the way she perceives the world, that she's surrounded by things that are threatening to her, like a frightened teenager. And she really, using these birds is very, very good. She says these are not like city vermin birds, but other kinds of birds that have dodos and lories and things like this that she said just feel threatening to her. And I thought that was important, that she can't even go onto a train and just have a neutral, quiet experience because she feels threatened by the world around her.
I was taken by something that Lynn said, that she has guts. Full transparency, I had to go back and look up who was the last author we read. Courtney Zofnass. But and I was like, oh yeah, spilt milk. But she had guts too.
She
I
did.
think these young women have guts aplenty. I just don't know. I don't share that with, my daughter or my best friend, and they're just all, really super gutsy, and spilt milk was definitely autobiographical. Evie, then Lynn. Evie.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of transportation because I was thinking about the train at first and realizing, when I went to school, I was probably the first class at UIC because I started out at Navy Pier, so that really makes me really ancient. But I think that was my first. My first experience on the subway. I mean, I was always a bus person. We always lived in the city, but the idea of going in the subway and then going up the steps and then taking the bus, going from the dark, meandering underground path to all of a sudden the brightness of Michigan Avenue and State Street as I remember it, etc., and making that transition. But then I was listening to that, and then all of a sudden comparing, because I think the subway is very, very confining, and then the breath of fresh air when you're outside. But then I was comparing it to navigating the subway, and then when we got married and moved out here to the Northwestern or whatever they're calling that, just a whole difference in terms of just the ambiance. You wouldn't see somebody having a snack on the subway where you might, more so have a friendly chat. And just the difference in people, like there's an analogy of a psychological thing of all the people on your bus and so forth, or your subway, and all the different characters in your own mind that you're dealing with. But then it's a whole, how the ambiance makes such a difference. Plus, in full disclosure, I've always had a bird phobia. So that was another reason where I could not finish the story. I just realized that.
Skip over that part. Read the last
I'll go to the last page.
Go to the last page. Oh my God. Night bird phobia. Wow. All right. I have Lynn, Mary, Elaine. Lynn.
Okay, I'm going to try to be optimistic
worst.
here. Notice this is a journey. Okay, that's a familiar genre, the journey. And she's headed towards grandma, which is, to me, a very calming, comforting image. So she is her goal was to get to grandma's. So she is seeking that comfort. But what fascinated me was the basket that she carried.
Yes.
So I kept making a list of what she was taking out of that basket. When she got to chicken soup, I thought, I thought something is positive here in
Only
this.
Jewish part.
After it didn't spill.
I said that's the only Jewish part.
That's what I
of the
said too.
story.
Yeah, you could be right about that.
But she is taking comfort food and she's sharing it, and there's bread and chicken soup and there's an apple, and these are life-sustaining things in her basket. So I think she really wants life. I think the path is life for her. It's just how she's going to get there. And I don't know, is Grandma going to help? I know that this is Little Red Riding Hood, sort of, in this. Was
Sort of.
Grandma, what did Grandma do in Little Red Riding Hood? I can't remember.
Well, the wolf got her. She's in the closet. And she comes out in the end. It's
Okay.
happy.
She's
It's a
happy.
happily ever after.
Okay.
Well, depends
Okay.
which version, I guess.
So I think there is evolution in here again. I mean, she does a lot with evolving people, and I'm so curious to know what these other stories are going to look like. But
Well, we got Emma Goldman in 2 weeks. All right,
Yes.
I have Mary, Elaine, and Karen. Mary.
Okay. One is I take the subway all the time when I'm in New York. I love the subway. It is so wonderful. You see kids with their backpacks going to school. 11-year-olds in New York use the subway to go to school by themselves and get home every day. It is, you see people in suits and you see lots of people in suits. Now, they used to be there, with their briefcase. Now it's of course with the backpack, but you see lots of college students. You see people eating and reading, listening to music. You see people talking to each other. You see grandmas come on with their carts of food. I mean, it's it's not a negative, and it's well lit, and there's tons of art now everywhere on the walls. And it's not just the group. Yes, it used to be during the Warhol days, the drug days of New York. Yes, it was graffiti, and the 18th Street is closed, and it is kind of dark because there are no lights because it's all locked up. So she chose that. But her description of the subway, she puts animals there, but it's really filled with incredibly I mean, I won't go to the subway at 11 o'clock at night. I do.
Nor should you.
Right. I do take it at 6 o'clock at night, sometimes to meet my daughter alone and have no problem. So you have to be like in any city, you have to be careful.
Right. You have to know where you're
that's
going.
The first thing.
Absolutely.
The second thing is that it's not unusual. She teaches a writing class and she teaches fairy tales. That's her subject matter. That's her expertise. She's a college professor. So she's using what she knows, which is what good writers do. She knows the stuff. She knows everything we're saying about, well, it could be Little Red Riding Hood, or it could be this or this image or that image, the image of the snake and rebirth and Garden of Eden and she loads it up. I find that these stories, it's what she does that I don't like is that she stereotypes. She tends to be very, the subway is only bad or what is scary or whatever. This is only this way. Her little girl, teenage woman, she's wearing the typical thing. She's got the black makeup. She's got the Doc Martin. She's the bomber jacket. I mean,
right. I mean, she describes it as
typical, and that's what I don't like.
Well, she describes it as goth. You took it as bad. I didn't take it as bad. But I have Elaine.
Stereotypical.
Right. Elaine, Karen, and Alice. Elaine.
Okay, the other day I saw Marty Supreme, which was.
Was it good?
It was horrible.
Horrible.
I hated it.
God. I hated it too.
Okay, all right. Wait, let me finish. Yeah, let me finish. Okay, the reason was I didn't like any of the characters. In this book, we all look for something good. There's not one character, the snake, the guy, the guy. We as mothers would be chagrined if our daughters wore black and purple hair. So that's her problem. And we can't seem to get away. And the snakes and the birds and whatever he's saying, we all have an aversion to snakes, whether we are afraid of them or not. But that's the problem. There's nothing good to grab onto. And when you want this, we all at our age want something. Oh, it's nice. Look at this beautiful little baby was just born. And a cute little story. Okay. None of her stories are likable. And that's one of the problems you have. As Lynn said, you have to like search and search and search, and I don't want to work that hard.
Okay, that's a different story. Karen, go ahead.
So I who looked at every other story she had written in a very analytic way, going, "Oh my God, this lady has an intimate knowledge of mental illness." But this story I kind of liked. I kind of thought that this girl was really resilient, and in her basket she had a bottle of iodine that she
Yes.
methodically applied
She
to
had a bag
every
of bread.
inch of broken
Get a bad break at
skin.
the end.
Wait a minute,
And
we can't hear because other people are talking. So let Karen talk. Go ahead, Karen.
So as she took this bottle of iodine and methodically applied it to every inch of broken skin, she is a wound and its cure, a germ-free adolescent. And I just thought some of the images, a snake with strep throat.
Yeah.
Snakes never blink. And I thought there were some fabulous phrases, and
I did too.
then when I looked at the clothing she took off her motorcycle jacket and she folded it lovingly. And then she unties her blood-stained apron. What teenage girl do you know who wears an apron?
It's Alice in Wonderland.
Is that, no, it's Hansel and Gretel. She the white apron, the blue
I
dress.
really felt that this girl was taking care of herself, that she was growing up, that she was transforming in a positive way. And I didn't find it to be as negative as some of you did. And I think that was interesting. It was interesting to me because I thought the other ones were so overwhelmingly negative. So that's my take. And
Thank
the
you,
other
Karen.
thing that I loved in the book was amongst all the pins were the diaper pins with the ducks on
I
them.
like those too. I thought that was.
And,
Yeah,
you know,
it was good. It was good. Alice and then Beverly. Alice.
Yeah, I was just going to say, going back to the subway imagery, I love trains, and I haven't taken a subway in many, many years, but I did, in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. I never took one in New York. It's a long story, but I was in Paris for a long time. I took the subways there all the time. And it's kind of like, especially if you're in a city that you're not that familiar with, you're being taken to a new place. You know you're going to get to that place, but it's like the journey is kind of a little bit threatening because it's like, am I really going to get there? And you don't
Right.
know. And then as as you were saying, as Evie was saying, and then you go up and the light is there and hopefully you're at the place that you want to be. And then you move on and do whatever you're going to do. So I really like the imagery of the subway because I've always liked subways.
Always like.
I like that. Beverly.
So when I read the story, it's not that I have anything really new to say because you're all so smart, but the first thing I thought of was Red Riding Hood going to grandma. And that it is a familiar theme of the journey, the Odyssey, and getting from one place to another place. So she's going through her metaphorical forest,
Right.
filled with all the dangers that a forest can hold, and on her way to grandma. So I thought it was kind of a new, interesting way to talk about the journey instead
like
of
that.
usual ways that we
Right.
see it in literature. I
Right.
think that as a writer, her imagination is over the
Right.
top, but I think amazing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for her
Yeah.
imagination
Yeah.
and her writing.
Before we go to Merle, I grew up in Crystal Lake. There's no subways there. And my parents, they took us to London and France, and I went on the subways there. And I remember Arthur came to Chicago, and I'm like, whenever I go on the subway, I think of Europe. He goes, "You are one spoiled little girl," because that's what my memories were of these foreign cities on the subway. I'd never been on the L or in Chicago, and he's like, "Oh my God." But so everybody brings their own, memories to the subway, but and there's something to be said about that. Merle.
Well, she's on this with all the birds who at first seem
You like the birds.
but then they head forward like she does. And suddenly there's something wrong with the train. And she hears the music with Celine Dion, which she hates. She gets off the train and lowers herself in that part between the cars that's so dangerous. All of the birds follow.
I was so scared of that. Yeah.
Walk. And finally they get to a station and things are locked. She can't get out of that station. She sits down, she eats, and she thinks about it. And finally, after trying to pick these locks with pins and needles, she's trying to pick the lock. She goes into her basket and really got it. She gets, there's something about her that's very resilient.
Yeah.
Resourceful. Trying hard to get to her grandma. So I think there is something positive about this story, even though we realize most of her world is hostile. Everything around her seems hostile, but she does find a way. So maybe there's another positivity in this story because she does. That's the key. She unlocks it.
Okay, Annette, first comment. Go.
Okay, so I see her as very competently handling the challenges. I'm sort of like Karen. She's handling the challenges that she faces, and I'm fascinated with the dodo image.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
She at the end, she throws the dodo up into the air, and suddenly it can fly.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very positive way of looking at what she's trying to do.
Right.
Good. Izzy.
So I never heard of a dodo bird, so I looked it up.
Okay.
A dodo bird is an extinct flightless bird in the Indian Ocean. It's been extinct for years and years. So the metaphor of her using the dodo bird to help her and putting it is a fantasy. Because it could, so I thought reality there's no reality. Right? So I thought that was.
Here's some dodo birds up on the screen.
Oh my gosh.
Don't you remember the birds that you had as a kid that you put in water and it would?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the dodo bird.
Yep.
It was like a plastic bird that would flop in the water and drink.
Yeah.
But they did describe it as
I know, but this was
the
plastic.
Yeah. But they do look like parrots.
Lynn.
No, I was just thinking about trains. And I remember when I grew up on the North Shore and we used to take the train down into the city. And I remember looking out as I went through the different stations. It was like a lesson in, what can I say? In class division.
Yes.
And reality.
Sociology.
And reality and whatever. Yeah. I remember seeing the clotheslines on the, and the windows that were cracked and that section and thinking about where I came from and then looking through that and then going down into the dark area before you got up to the station. And this story again, it's the magical realism, I think, that's throwing everybody off. And it's like, it is not literal. It is not linear. It is not linear. It is confusion. And if you think about it, our life is not linear. We go through a lot of things and handle them and then come back to other stations in our life. And I think while I laugh at the initial reading of the stories and say, okay, what is this about? I think that's all of life. When we encounter something, we say, what is this about? All of a sudden things have gone smoothly and then And she's trying to communicate to us what it's like to be a person who is having mental difficulties. And I think that it's strange to many of us. Some of us can probably identify with it. But if you were asked to explain to somebody, it's like trying to explain to a doctor what a pain feels like. Try to explain to something what's going on in your mind, you couldn't say it literally. You'd have to say it's like you'd have to use a simile, you'd have to use a metaphor to explain what it is you're feeling. And that's what's making this very difficult to read. But I would suggest stay with it. Just hang on to something that's familiar.
Yeah. I did look up pins and needles, and the expression on pins and needles comes from the literal prickly feeling when a limb falls asleep due to restricted blood flow, which feels like tiny pricks. And this physical sensation was metaphorically transferred around 1800 to describe the mental state of nervous anxiety. I've never heard of that today. I guess you could be on pins and needles and be anxious, or suspense while waiting for something important. It vividly captures the restless, tense feeling of being on edge, just like the tingling discomfort in a limb returning to normal, but applied to emotional anticipation, like waiting for exam results or good news. And, maybe that's talking about her life, that she's on pins and needles waiting for a good outcome, waiting for things to happen and that. Andy.
But when you think about that image for someone that age, they wouldn't even, would kids know anything about pins and needles? Like, that's an
They
old.
could be anxious.
Well, she's a writer.
Yeah.
And I hope she would have, that. It's interesting to think, what people know and what people don't. That's a very quick anecdote. I'm with a group. I'm the oldest person now at camp, and I'm working with these young colleagues, and we're trying to think of a game to teach about heroes. And I said, to tell the truth. Crickets. I said, or what's your line? I'm working with someone my age. She goes, oh my God, those are great ideas. And then we had to write letters, and someone goes, should we put the name on it? And I said, well, the person, Beth, she's not Karnak. Nothing except my partner. She goes, you're so funny. I said, I know, but my audience doesn't. I need an old audience. Judy.
I had a similar experience. I was telling my son to watch the episodic Shetland TV show, and I love it. And I said, it's like comparing, I liked Ding Dong School more than I liked Sesame Street because the pace of it is better. He said, what's Ding Dong School? And the truth is, I appreciate she's making an evolution. I just don't relate to her evolution. And I really don't like the person that makes me think of the things she made me think of to see her evolution. So that was my problem.
We've got to get a younger generation in here to see what they would say about these stories. Would it be more, could they connect to it? Would they, what would they have to say about it? It would just be so fascinating to hear that, or even a man. Andy's rolling her eyes. Abby and then Lynn. We're not asking Rich.
Disclosure. When I am with my adult kids, I have no idea what they're talking about. I don't understand the language. I don't understand the context. They don't understand my slight sarcasm. And when we think about, going back to any kind of literature, older literature, I'm lost. And so I think we were all kind of on a narrow, and to quote the Hebrew song, on a narrow bridge in terms of what we're aware of, and to go down that rabbit hole to try to figure things out.
Yeah.
Right.
Lynn, then Elaine.
So I want to respond to Andy. I have a friend who is on anti-anxiety medication, and so is her daughter, and so is her granddaughter.
Yikes.
All three of them. And the granddaughter started on it in junior high, and the daughter started on it recently, and my friend started on it about 40 years ago. So the idea of anxiety, we all have it. I mean, I have it now, just with what's going on in the world. But a deep down mental anxiety exists more than you know it in many more people than we know it at earlier stages of their life. If you talk to any therapist who has young people as their clients, the anxiety that these kids are facing is enormous, whether it's from the environment, whether it's pressure from home, whether it's whatever it is. So I think this is an exaggeration, no doubt. This is an exaggeration, but it's a phenomenon that is in our society and has been in our society.
That is exactly what I was going to say. I think more kids are in therapy, more people recognize it, and we've read books. And those people had anxiety, they were ADD, ADHD on the spectrum 50 years ago, but they just didn't have anyone who recognized it. So now we have, I think it's good. We have more health professionals. Elaine and Andy.
Okay, one of the things I think that we all at our age are looking for is happy stories. And the problem with this book is that
for you,
right, for me, that I don't like the characters. That was the movie. I didn't like one character in the whole movie.
I didn't either.
And you know what? Yes, we all have anxiety, but I think we have to work so hard to understand this author that none of us really want. Some of us, maybe Lynn or Merle, want to work that hard, but I don't.
I love it.
Right. I want, like, roses and nice. And I keep saying to people, I live in a bubble now. I created this bubble for myself, and I'm just walking with my bubble all around me. Okay?
Well, that's
something to be said
I
about
want
that.
to join your bubble.
Huh?
I want to join your bubble.
we all do.
Make it a bigger bubble.
Andy then Mary. Andy.
Well, I mean, to this point, last night, after all these meetings and stuff, and I went upstairs and we watched All Creatures Great and Small. That is where you just get out of this, you get absorbed. Everyone's nice, or just this wonderful place to be for an hour. I said, we made a good choice.
There you go. Here.
Wait, I had one other thing.
I can't remember.
We'll come back.
Yeah,
Mary and then Merle. Mary. Okay.
I don't like this book because there's no depth to it. Truly no depth. She relies on fairy tales for you to unravel these themes, these ideas. She never gets to what made the girl feel the way she did. What was her grandmother really like? What is her background in terms of where, even if she relies on fantasy totally. She plays games with you. It is sort of like
a short story.
It's like
short story.
no, but she's using tricks 100% of the time and never gets beyond it. And we've read short stories where there is depth to the character that you walk away going, "Gosh, I understand that." They went, the person went through whatever it was in their life that made them this way, or we understand the parents' concern because of where they come from, or what community they live in, what class they are, whatever it is, or there's you understand that okay, there's racism that makes somebody this way or that way, or perception, or whatever. That is not here. She is playing games with us, pure, simple. She relies on fantasy purely. She never gets beyond it.
All right.
And that's my complaint.
Okay. Merle, Alice, Andy. Merle.
Keep it in your brain.
Wait. Go ahead.
I want to say thank you so much for recognizing that some of this like to work, analyzing the story. I really do. And this thing about pins and needles, there was one other reference that I found, which was that the way upholstery was made in the past, They use pins. And so people might sit down in a chair and be pricked.
I thought that's interesting. That she was selling, that she was.
Fascinating.
No matter how you look at this reference of pins and needles, it's associated with discomfort, physical pain, or anxiety. And I think this story is really about that. This girl's journey trying to get out of her physical and emotional, finally getting to grandma and saying to her, look, I'm shedding my skin. Things are going to be better. But I think the draw of this book is that you do have to work hard to read the story. So when you're done, you remember something. You walk away with something.
Yeah. Alice, Andy, Elaine. Alice.
This kind of adds a little bit to what Merle just said. I've been in another book club for 43 years. And I feel from being in that book club all that time that I've been pushed to read things that were difficult that I wouldn't read on my own, but that the leader and the other people in the book club like enlighten me. And I feel like all of you enlighten me with all your different points of view. And I think you know, this was my mantra all the years I was in my book club. I would come home to my husband and I would say, I really didn't like that book, but you know what? I like it better now that we discussed it. And I have to tell you, we read a book, I think it was the first year of our book club by Margaret Atwood, not The Handmaid's Tale, but we did read that. It was called Surfacing. It was like this book. It had this imagery. I just couldn't get it. I just what is this? And it was a whole novel. I said, what is this book about? But you know what? And then I heard the leader kind of pull stuff out of all of us. So I think, I think it's good for all of us to have to work a little bit.
All right.
And
I have Andy, Izzy, Lynn, Abby. Andy.
This is just about anxiety, whether it was before or after or currently. And I do think our times are worse because of the scope of everything. But I think anxiety, and I just anecdotally, the valedictorian of my high school class, I went to Highland High School, leather sweater, the whole family was smart. They're white, very waspy looking. And he went to Harvard, valedictorian, and he committed suicide.
He died of suicide.
Yes, took his own life.
I'm sorry.
Right. Okay.
That's from Lee Town.
He took his own life, but
He took his right.
that's what I usually say. But I just think that's so symbolic and real of what people are going through, and I don't even know that
Exactly.
write these kinds of stories.
Izzy.
Yeah, so anecdotally, when you're talking about pins and needles, my mother used to make all my clothes. And she used to shorten my skirts and use pins all around it. And I used to have to stand there and the pins hit my legs all the way around. And I hated that she made my clothes. I wanted to go to the store and buy a regular. So unbelievable that this just hit me. It was so
Pins and needles.
And I was angry.
All right, Lynn and then Abby. And then I do have to end on time today. And I have a couple of announcements.
Okay, so I'm going to answer as a former teacher. And my worst classes I would ask a question about a piece of literature and there would be silence. There was nothing to get the class going. I tried different ways of doing it. This class is really unusual. And for you to want to participate in the class and have your thoughts spoken and your thinking be critical is invaluable in terms of mind development. And where are you going to get that? Not from a cartoon or a shallow chick flick novel. These are, and I started how many years ago? I've been retired 25 years, starting with Joyce Schrager. there was never a time where the class was not engaged in discussing ideas. Whether
Sure.
you understood the ideas or whether you had trouble with the ideas, that's using your mind. I mean, that critical thinking
Yeah.
is the most important value that you can possess. And that's lack of it is where we are now in our country.
Which we can't get into. Abby.
No. Right.
I don't know how to follow up on that, but getting back to what Alice was saying, and I agree with that totally. But the problem that I have is not problem, maybe the benefit. We have all these wonderful discussions, but how much are we saying, and what do we really care about what the author really, really meant? I mean, I've always had that trouble with poetry, with literature. I mean, I love the way we're interpreting it, and it's really broadening our minds. But then I think it's almost it's just challenging to me to say, well, this is what the author meant, and I have that I've had that with literature. I've had that a little bit with Torah studies. I have it,
Interesting, very interesting.
Can I answer that? Can I answer, Evie?
Yes, quickly.
Evie, there's no right or wrong interpretation.
Oh, I like that.
The beauty of this class is that people are using their minds to tell you what they think of the story.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's what I love about it.
So that to me is, the students used to say that. Well, how do we know what the interpretation is? That whole Robert Frost reply when someone said, what do the woods mean or whatever? He said, I don't know. I wrote it and then now it's yours. It's not mine anymore, So
I like that, Lynn. Good comment to end on. We meet again. Oh my God, I just looked it up. On February 4th, right? And we're going to do Emma Goldman. Takes tea with the Baba Yaga. Well, at least we can look up Emma Goldman. Also, I would be remiss if I did not mention that this weekend, I say our own Ben Zeller because he's a member, and perhaps his mother, whose name is Karen, is with us this morning, but he's talking about an introduction to Islam. And I like all of our speakers, but Ben is a college professor and knows how to teach. And every time I sit with him, I'm like, I want to sign up for his course. He is amazing. And I said it yesterday in another class that you weren't in, Karen. So just know I'm a huge fan of Ben. Watch your email for a lot of things coming up. February 1st, we're off, but February 8th, it's going to be online. Jim, Kenny, already talking about the midterms.
Oh, okay.
So Alice, she had to get off. If Alice doesn't want that, she shouldn't come on. Anyway, we'll see what Jim Kenny said. Thank you, everyone. I love all of your comments, and hopefully I will see you here or online. Be well. Stay warm.
Great to see you.